Welcome to Super Sourcecast episode 9, and this is the final Sourcecast of 2017. 2018 is looking pretty good so far, but 2017 was a very big year for gaming, I would say. We had the launch of the Nintendo Switch, I believe that Xbox came out with the Xbox One X this year, the closing of Visceral, a lot of loot boxes all around, it seems, and we thought we would conclude this year by talking about all of our favourite moments and big gaming news from all of 2017. So joining me, NantenJex, today is Spazzy D.
Hey, guys.
And Wolfman.
Hello.
So, Wolfman, I think this is the first of the Sourcecast you've been on, or at least since the reboot.
I haven't been on a Sourcecast in months, so I'll go with you.
Yes. So, why don't you start off by telling us how you're doing and what games you're playing at the moment?
I'm doing well. I'm kind of juggling a number of different games. Last week I played and finished the excellent What Remains of Edith Finch, and right now I'm juggling two different games, one of which I think is very good, the other of which is not so good. And the first of those is Doom, which I have. Both of these are for the Switch. Yes, Doom 2016, which is just an absolutely excellent shooter. It is incredibly well designed with wonderful enemies that all are drastically unique in their design, which is great because if you are having trouble seeing what they are, you instantly know what they are and how to deal with them. It means that there's this incredible gameplay loop of you constantly shooting these enemies and running up to them, then your health gets low, so you hit them with this move called a glory kill, which is kind of a one-hit KO that causes a bunch of health pickups to spill out. And then so it's this really cool back and forth where you're constantly moving. It's just excellent. The other one is unfortunately not so good, and that is Yooka-Laylee, which has been an incredibly infuriating experience of characters who are irritating, movement that feels kind of ungainly, tools that are incoherent, levels that are convoluted and don't make any sense, challenges that are mind-numbing, mini-games that are unsatisfying and go on too long.
What platform have you been playing on?
Switch.
Okay.
Yeah. So it just sounds like a lot of guff, basically. Like a lot of little things that all build up to major problems when all put together.
Yeah,
yes.
The funny thing is that I've heard, I haven't played the game, but that they made a lot of improvements over the way, and that the product that you're playing now is vastly superior to what it launched as.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah. They updated it, and then the Switch version is a slightly better version, because it's based on the Wii U one, which was the one that the dev team were actually working on initially as the main console. So I hear the Switch version is the better of them. I haven't gotten around to play it. I was a backer, and it's sitting on my Switch, but I need to get through the games that I'm going to be talking about in a second first.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of worrisome that this is the improved one, because I feel like the nicest thing I can describe it as is structurally problematic. Like, you kind of get the sense that everything is about to fall apart.
Oh, God.
I'll say this. As somebody looking from the outside in, it looks like a 3D platformer that would have come out 15 years ago. I mean, it's got the look, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what Banjo-Kazooie fans wanted, right?
Yeah. The music seems okay from what I've heard.
It's good.
Right.
It's David Wise and Grant Kirkhope do good music. I think that their music on Snake Pass and Mario plus Rabbids this year kind of eclipses it, but
Well, all right, fair. I haven't played ukulele yet. I played Doom. Doom's a great game, but I played it on PS4. But I hear good things about the Switch. It's obviously not as graphically tight as the PS4 version, but the fact that they got it even working on the Switch and running both in, especially like in undocked mode, it's really good. It's got really good reception.
Can we take a minute out and just say, man, Grant Kirkhope's had a year, hasn't he? Because he also did songs for Hat in Time.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Well, no, he did one song for A Hat in Time.
I mean, still,
he did the Hub World spaceship.
which is a fantastic theme.
Yes, I guess that's a good way to segue into the games you've been playing recently, Spazzy.
I've been playing Hat in Time, which is a delightful 3D platformer, which has a lot of charm, great looks, excellent controls. I would say that it is definitely the second best hat-themed 3D platformer I've played this year. However, I'll say that it probably actually has Mario beat in two ways. And one of those is I feel like controls of the character itself, I feel like we're a little bit tighter, believe it or not, in A Hat in Time compared to Mario, because I feel like Mario's controls are kind of stuck in that Mario 64 phase where they don't want to get too different from what he could do there. Whereas in A Hat in Time, you can double jump and you can dash, and there's a little bit more control, a little bit of a wall climb and things like that. And then also in boss battles, because there were a couple like interesting and very visually cool boss battles in Mario Odyssey. But the vast majority of them just felt like they were there and they were super easy and they weren't anything to write home about. Whereas I thought like the boss battles in A Hat in Time are really, really creative and interesting. And even the very first boss fight, I died once, and I wouldn't have died if I was paying a little bit more attention. But the fact that it was even enough of a challenge to make me die, I'm like, oh wow, I shouldn't have done what I did. As opposed to Mario Odyssey, it was like how many bosses in until you felt like one was actually doing something that challenged you?
I agree that the bosses in A Hat in Time are pretty challenging, although I think they go on way too long. I wasn't that big a fan of a few of the bosses because you die, start from the beginning. Although there is one good thing in A Hat in Time where every boss is split into obviously like 3 phases.
Yes.
And if you die in one of the phases, you no longer have to... It starts you back from the beginning, from phase 1, but you only have to hit them once and not like 3 times to get them to change.
Really? You say that. Today I just fought a boss in ukulele that is incredibly frustrating, and part of it is that the most difficult section is the first one that is going to eat away at all your health, and then you have to do the other 2 sections.
Yeah, and A Hat in Time had things that reminded me of Mario. There's a lot of Psychonauts in that DNA, actually, like a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a cool game. I liked it. I thought it had a great soundtrack, and it never felt like a slog, which I feel like a lot of games that I've been playing recently have. I just started Xenoblade 2, and by just started, I mean I am 2 hours in, which means I'm not even. I don't even know if I don't even have party members yet. I'm about to go meet them on a boat or some shit. So I have not. With Xenoblade, 2 hours is I basically turned the game on. Is how.
Yeah, you watched the opening cutscene.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm excited about it. I like the feel of it so far. I'm also going back and trying to get back into Doom, which I also have on the Switch. Which tell me if you agree with me or not, Wolfman, but as somebody that I had the opportunity, I almost bought it on Xbox One, I almost bought it on PC, I just kept not buying it, and then I figured, you know what, I'll support, third parties on Nintendo and I'll buy the Switch version. As somebody who had not played the other versions, it plays fine. I mean, if I'm looking at a side-by-side comparison, yeah, I guess I can notice it, but it looks great and it plays fine in docked and in handheld mode. At no point I'm like, man, this feels like a compromised experience.
It feels incredibly smooth for me anyway. Maybe it would be more satisfying in 60 frames per second, but at least the way it is, I don't really notice it. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the design of the game, like you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's a game where you're constantly moving. Like, movement is very important, and so the frame rates, it's a game where frame rates would matter more, but having no frame of reference to another version of the game, like the biggest compliment I can give that game is at no point did I think, man, this is being held back by the hardware. I would rather be playing this on my PS4 or my Xbox One.
Yeah.
So
okay. So I guess I'll go. So my games then. You talked about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 being 2 hours in it. I'm 96 hours in it.
Oh man, you got me beat.
And I literally just beat it the other day. Go through the final stuff, so now I'm in the post game, which means it's put me right back in front of the final boss door, and now I'm doing all of the side quests I hadn't done and stuff like that. And I think it's a great game. I think the first one's still my favorite of the three of them, but the first one was quite a big deal for me because I went into it with zero expectations and was out of JRPGs for a long time, and it really drew me back in. Whereas this one, I kind of knew things going into it because of Nintendo, and I think there were some scenes or early scenes that I would have been really shocked about had it not been told me. Had I not been told by Nintendo prior to the game's release in those directs and stuff.
I was going to say that I feel like that was a lot of people's experience. I mean, for me, I used to love JRPGs it was my favorite genre in the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era. And then I was really into them too, on the PS1. And then I just kind of fell off in the PS2. But I felt like Xenoblade kind of rekindled my love for JRPGs. But sorry, apologize for that. Continue.
Nah, that's fine. But Xenoblade 2 is great. I understand people worrying about it being too anime-ish, and I definitely see that at times, but I think that it's still very Xenoblade and Monolith at the same time, and I think the story is really good, and the characters, I don't think there's a single character I don't like in this game, which I think was the same in the first Xenoblade, at least for the party members, but even the side characters in this game are great. And I want to, even though I know I need to move on and keep playing other games, I want to go back and just mess around and try and get all the side quests and stuff. I have the expansion pack, so I've got motivation to go back whenever the next DLC drops and play that for a bit. Like I'm currently also doing with Zelda Breath of the Wild, playing the Champions Ballad on that. I'm 3/4 through it. I've done 3 of the Champions Ballads. And just got the Mifa left now to go through while picking up DLC costumes on the way. But I'm just doing that bit by bit. The other game I'm playing is Hiragana Pixel Party, which is just a very simple rhythm game that teaches you how to read hiragana, which I already kind of know how to do, but it's nice to refresh. She pronounces the word and it pops up the symbol that associates it with the sound, and you have to press the button to the beat to jump over obstacles, and it's a sweet game. It's a very simple game. And I think, I won't go into too much details, although I think my review for it will be out by the time this podcast comes out, so you should watch that. The other one I'm not sure will be out or not is Teslagrad, which I also started literally today to play that one for a review. And it's I'd heard quite a lot about it. I follow the artist for it on Twitter. He's a good guy. And I think this is the first game from their studio I've played, and the presentation's really nice. It's all... Have either of you played Teslagrad?
No.
It's think of Wario Land Shake It and how, it was all very, animated well and all the characters were sort of hand-drawn in that, and Teslagrad is like that, except not anime. It's and I think the presentation for that is really good, even if parts of it, I think the bosses in that game are just really frustrating. And I think it comes down to the fact that it's one of those games where if you get hit once, you're dead. And it sends you back, kind of like Mega Man. And there are boss layouts that there's just no space to breathe. And that gets really annoying. And it's all 3 bosses I've fought so far have been like that. So I've not been looking forward to any more. But we'll see. I don't know how long the game is. But I'm hoping it's not that long, because I'm shorter games so I can get through them, and then I can actually give Yooka-Laylee a try, because I've been waiting since April to play it. Finally have it, and I've got too much stuff on my plate to pick it up. So, yeah, we'll see. Xenoblade's the main one, and with Christmas, I'm sure I'm going to have more games to
my backlog
be playing soon.
is huge.
Yeah. One thing I've been wondering about Xenoblade 2, I really liked the first one because I think the party was kind of small, 7 characters, just like in Chrono Trigger. And it was kind of easy to understand how things, like the arts worked. And I found Xenoblade 2 to be far too convoluted.
Too much.
It's not really. I mean, it changes things up, but basically all you really have to remember is that you've got 3 arts this time rather than however many you had at the bottom. And each art, what decides which art you use is basically whatever blade you pick as your partner. So you have 3 blades, 3 arts for each blade, so that makes 9 arts overall. And it's just easy to just jump through them all. Arts work exactly the same way as they did in the other game. The one additional thing this time is this element idea, where each blade has like a Pokemon. There's fire types, water types, ice types. And at the top of the screen it tells you, like, you've used a fire attack, so your enemy is burnt for a while. If you use a water attack during this time, that attack will do more damage. Okay. And then if you do a fire attack after that, then you'll do like what's called a blade combo that does like a big amount of damage and gives them this kind of element orb that works for chain attacks. But it's all like on the screen. It tells you exactly which element you need to use and tells you exactly which blade you have that will work. And will pop up to let you know, well, if you should use this now to help. Like I think it's all well explained, and the combat is different enough from the first one that it's like, it feels new, whereas it's still basically the same as the first one. It's just kind of presented in a different way. It does look more complicated, but it's not. And there are less party members in this game than there were in the first one. So you've got less. It's more because the blades change up what class you are. Like so in the first one you had Sharla was the healer, Ryan and Dunban were the tanks, Ricky and Melia were the more
magic,
and Fiora and Shulk were the main attackers. And then in this one, they kind of have a default class because of what blades they have. Like Rex is the attacker because his blade is an attack type one, and Nia's a healer because her default blade is a healer. But they don't have to be. You can give Nia an attacking blade if you want, and make her be the one who does all the attacking, whereas I ended up making Rex the healer in the end, because then I'd have more control over it, and then had a tank and another attacker as my sides to do all the damage.
Okay, that's neat.
But yeah, I don't think it looks more complicated, I agree, but it's not once you actually play it. I never really got the criticism people had that the game doesn't explain anything, because there is way too many tutorials in this game. Like, you get stopped all the time early on in the game. It's have fun with that, Spazzy.
Yeah, I've already experienced some of that. Narratively, like, I'm at the very beginning, but even so, it does feel more like the first game than there seems to be more of a focus on. I don't want to say, because I guess X did have a focus on characters, but X kind of got away from itself quickly.
Yeah. Well,
X had too many characters, and the fact that they don't...
And not enough important characters.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't distribute experience means that you're discouraged from using all of these characters who are too complex to...
Yeah. Xenoblade 2 is Xenoblade 2 for a reason. Like, it's more a follow-up to the first game, and X is kind of more its open-world, gameplay-focused spin-off instead.
Okay.
Which is why I think if they want to do X2 and just kind of have them both be Xenoblades, but both be, one is narrative focused, one is gameplay focused, and just head forward like that, which I'm fine with. But yeah, okay. I think that's enough for all the games we've been playing recently. So let's actually go on to the sort of, usually we do the news topics, but because we're talking about 2017 in general, it makes sense to talk about things that have spanned the whole year, basically. And the obvious big one is the launch of Nintendo's next system, the Switch, which has dominated this year in terms of releases and news and all sorts. Like, we knew about it last October, 2016 as in, was when they first showed us the system, but we didn't hear any details about it till January. And then it launched in March, and since then we had a bit of a slow start, but then around E3 time, it's been a consistent game per month Even in like November, they published Skyrim, so technically Nintendo published a game every month since E3. And it's been getting lots of news coverage with how many games it's got, how well it's selling.
I thought the Switch had no games.
Apparently, the Switch has 303 games in Europe. I saw this today on Twitter.
And it's honestly amazing just how good the eShop has gotten already in terms of content. Not so much in terms of the layout itself, which is
that needs,
not great.
The operating system in general is awful. I mean, it's clean.
Yeah.
But it has no soul. Yeah,
I said this in another discussion, which may or may not be out by the time this comes out. But, I feel like they're going to update the Switch's OS whenever they decide to go with their online services. Just because I feel like that's going to be when they add Virtual Console and rehaul the entire... That's when we'll be able to get our own custom... Well, not custom, but we'll be able to download themes and more avatar stuff. And, like, the OS is one of those areas where I think they held back on it to make sure they could get the Switch out this year. And so it's just lacking right now, but next year it'll be updated and improved. The eShop already saw at least one additional category added with the was it highlights or is it sales? I think it's sales.
It may have been sale. No, I think sales were there at least from when I got it, which admittedly was a few months later. It may have been the one where you can organize by which games have demos.
I don't know. I don't think it was that, because I remember that. I think that was there at the beginning. I think that's how I found demos. It was either that, highlights, or charts. One of those three: sales, highlights, or charts. I just don't know which one. Point is, at least it's been updated at least once. But I think the Switch is a really good system, and I'm really glad it's region-free, because I was in Japan when it came out. And so far, a lot of my... I also got a PS4 this year, and so my attention has been stuck between those two. But the Switch has had... I think I've got more games on the Switch if you ignore all the free shovelware I get with PSN.
I actually got a PS4 and a Switch this year too.
Nice.
Me too. We should form a club.
2017 is the year for buying all this, getting invested into the systems.
2 years ago on Black Friday, I got an Xbox One, and then this year, well, not on Black Friday. This year on Amazon Prime Days when I got my PS4 this year.
Oh, that's when I got my PS4 as well.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah, it was a good deal. I got it with Horizon.
They give me so many Uncharteds. They're like, here, take all of our Uncharteds.
I wanted to get it with Crash Bandicoot and Overwatch, and then by the time I went to go buy it, that one had been sold out. So I got it with Horizon and Wipeout.
Does anyone know, and I feel like this is something I should know, no, it can't be because the games are balanced separately. I was going to say, if I have an Overwatch account on PC, because I do, I play it just with my Blizzard account on the computer, I'm all like, I can't use that same account on PS4. And I'm like, no, of course not. There's no crossplay.
Yeah.
So
they're different servers.
Yeah, so why would I even think that? That was silly.
But right, I think the Switch is great, and I'm glad to see it doing really well. Wolfman, what are your thoughts on how Nintendo has handled the Switch this year?
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like coming into this, or at least in January when we first learned about it, I think there was a lot of skepticism from all of us, if I remember correctly. Like, we weren't sure about the price point, we weren't sure about the online service, we weren't sure about all the games, we were concerned about how many of them were ports, because even though the Wii U had so many excellent games, it's probably not a great idea to just have ports of old stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely between January and March, Nintendo just went completely silent when they really shouldn't have.
Yes.
But then the thing is that, like, it launched with Breath of the Wild, which is pretty much the best launched game since, I don't know, Mario 64.
Not
Twilight Princess?
Nah.
I like Twilight Princess.
Nah, Twilight Princess was a good Zelda, but it wasn't genre defining.
I would say, honestly, the killer app of the Wii and the one that I think is the most interesting would be Wii Sports.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's definitely true.
And the first Halo was good. But yeah, I think those kind of pale in comparison to Mario 64 and Breath of the Wild.
I try to pretend that Melee was a launch title for the GameCube. I know it wasn't.
it was
when
in Europe.
It doesn't, but the GameCube had good stuff too. I mean, to a certain extent, Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin did kind of like herald its financial troubles, but at the same time, those were good, interesting, kind of offbeat games.
Yeah, but I mean, it was still a failure. You could say the same thing about the Wii U. It had some interesting, offbeat games. Had a new Star Fox. It launched
with New Super Mario Bros. U and Nintendo Land. That should have been the sign that Nintendo was going to play it safe and have a lot of party games.
I say this every time, but you know what? I like Nintendo Land. I'll take Nintendo Land over 1-2 Switch any day.
I would have loved to see another Nintendo Land, to be honest.
And I'm just going to go in defense of my wonderful Wii U, that kind of lovely failure of a thing. Because it had so many games that are just fantastic, and obviously none of them really sold, but it won the moral victory.
I think the Wii U's great. Mine sits on my desk right next to me, next to the Switch, because I still go back and play some games. I literally bought Rayman Legends and Epic Mickey 2 for it recently, and I got the new Shantae DLC, which I need to put in and play as well, on top of everything else I've got to do.
I hope Xenoblade Chronicles X gets ported, because I feel like it's a game I would probably play more on Switch, but I won't.
I'm worried about how they'll do that, because just to have it run properly on the Wii U, you had to download this massive patch, and with the Switch's internal memory, and I already think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 suffers from being on a cartridge. I can't imagine what X would be like.
Yeah, I was going to actually bring that up, that I think the cartridges are a big bottleneck for Nintendo right now.
They are. I understand why they did it. No one likes the PSP's UMDs, and it's a portable device. You don't want to make it really big and clunky with a disc player inside the thing, and so I get why they did cartridges, but it is a big bottleneck. They're not as cheap as everyone was hoping they would be. I remember we did a podcast a while back with that. I can't remember his name now. We had a guest in who was very adamant that the cartridge issue wouldn't be a problem and that people would be able to get them really cheaply. And
I was saying no.
Yeah, you were saying no, and this is clearly not the case. Or the third party publishers like TK and EA are just being incredibly cheap. But I doubt that for a reason. I think that they're trying to compress things to fit them on cartridges, and they've done wonders, but some games are affected by it. And I think that's going to continue to be a big issue going forward unless Nintendo steps in to do something about it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one thing, because, this is about year-end review, and I was hoping... And do you think we could talk about some of the different games? Because I do think...
Yeah, no, we can. We were going to talk about some of the games that were coming up... that happened this year in one of the next segments.
Oh, sorry.
But if you want to talk about some specific Switch titles for this year, go for it right now.
Sure. I think ARMS is not as interesting as Splatoon, but it's still really good.
I like ARMS.
I like the fact that both of these games are kind of like almost deconstructions of competitive shooters and competitive fighting games.
Yeah.
Where you kind of strip everything down to the basic concepts and then kind of build up from there, almost as though you're seeing like a different evolutionary pattern.
Yeah, it's like if you explain to somebody who's never played a 3D shooter before what it is, just conceptually, and then just say, hey, go make one without any preconceived notion of it, you might get something like Splatoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and ARMS is kind of the same way with a fighting game. It changes the perspective from the side or from an angle to behind, almost, like a boxing game, like Punch-Out, but actually makes it a fighting game and not a sort of puzzle game like Punch-Out is.
Or honestly, kind of like a very deliberate third-person shooter, where you're like trying to play keep away with your opponent.
It honestly reminds me a lot of Virtual On. That's what it's always reminded me of. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that game, but I used to like it quite a bit in the arcade.
Okay. I'm not, but I like... Well, Splatoon 1 was great, and Splatoon 2, I haven't actually played it yet. I'm hoping it's one of the things I get for Christmas, but we'll see. But ARMS, I like the direction they're heading internally with all these new IPs. And it makes me excited to see what Nintendo's got planned next. And I like the world of ARMS. They didn't quite go the Overwatch route I was hoping they would by promoting all the characters, making them more big. But it's getting its own like graphic novel series next year. I think that's something that a lot of people forgot about. And they,
like a manga or something that would be.
I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if it's a Japanese manga or a American graphic novel. I think it's an American graphic novel simply because I know that Dark Horse are the publishers. And unlike Splatoon, where they announced it was a manga and then it came out as a manga in Japan, this has just been straight up announced as a graphic novel. So I'm guessing it might just be a one-off. Like, just explain the story of ARMS. Because they've announced that new character that's meant to be out by the end of this year, who's clearly the main villain of ARMS, because let's face it, Max Brass isn't really a villain character.
So who's going to do the art for the Dark Horse comic? Is going to be Mike Magnolia or Adam Warren?
I guess Dark Horse needs some more IPs since Disney just bought out Fox, which means that Marvel's now going to get Alien and Predator and Buffy. So sorry,
X-Files
and X-Files. Yes, sorry, Dark Horse.
Yeah, I'm okay with if Dark Horse want to start making Nintendo graphic novels and make that their new thing. Let's hope ARMS does well, and then we could potentially see Zelda or Fire Emblem and go
Star Fox. I'm gonna bring up Star Fox a lot.
Star Fox had a good graphic Nintendo Power comic back in the day. I remember that.
Honestly, I think Star Fox could probably do a lot better as a comic than as a game, because I think that they are really kind of struggling to how they want to actually approach like the games.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of. I just feel like Nintendo has to let go of what they want Star Fox to be and make it what the fans want Star Fox to be.
I don't know. I think a third-person shooter version of Star Fox could be interesting, and I think it could work better than it did with Assault. But also, I like the fact that Star Fox is, well, as Miyamoto says, about the vehicles you drive. It's a Thunderbirds type thing. The Star Fox team have all these different types of vehicles, whether it be the generic R-Wing or the Landmaster, the submarine, the helicopter, and then the quad bike as well, which is only used in the training mode for some reason. Like, I like that that's the focus, and I think they just need to implement it better, I think, and maybe have a bit more variation, because it's, for the most part, it is just R-Wing for everything, and then the odd occasion you have a choice. Like, maybe a good idea would be having a stage where you can choose whether or not you want to tackle it from the R-Wing or from the tank. And then, you could play through it one way and then play through it another, and that adds to the replay value. And maybe some things you can only find out. Maybe the story changes slightly depending on which one you use. Certain routes open up. Like, I think there are ways they could go about it, keeping it as a vehicle. They just need to take a step away from the Star Fox 64 formula that they've done three times now.
Here's a good way to talk about something else positive from this year, is now we're getting Xbox One or original Xbox compatibility with Xbox One.
That is good, yeah.
And one of the greatest games for the original Xbox, which I always tell people to play, and I feel like doesn't get as much respect as it deserves, is Crimson Skies. Have you guys played Crimson Skies?
I haven't, but I know what it is. That's the dragon one, isn't it?
No, it's not a dragon. It's an actual airplane. It's an airplane shooter.
Oh, okay.
Do you have? Well, I think you probably get it on PC as well. I was going to say you should check it out, because I've always felt this is a game that came out on Xbox in 2003, I think. Right? So it's an old game. But even then I said, man, this is what Nintendo needs to do with Star Fox, because it was free form, you could fly anywhere, it wasn't on rails, it was kind of arcadey, but it looked beautiful. I just felt like, why doesn't Nintendo do something like this with Star Fox? And they still haven't done it. And I just feel like all they do is they try to add gimmicks, and then they just have more and more on rails stuff. And on rails stuff is fine, but not for a triple or double A full game experience in 2017, 2018, right?
Well, Star Fox had an interesting year this year, because Zero obviously came out last year, but this year also saw Star Fox 2 finally released.
Yep.
On the SNES Mini, and they advertised it quite extensively, brought back those missing characters, drew new artwork for it, drew up an entire fake manual for it that was included with the SNES Mini, which was quite nice. And I like to think that that's, them saying, no, look, we're still going to do Star Fox stuff. Zero hasn't killed everything off. Like, it will just continue with this line now.
We had so many discussions where we just talked about how, the SNES Mini wouldn't have any of the Super FX chip stuff. And I was really happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah. I think it's needed for the Super Nintendo. Just like how I feel like maybe Rumble or Rare games will be needed for a Nintendo 64 Mini, and I hope they sort out one of those two. But we've gotten very off topic. Spazzy.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Do you have anything you want to talk about with the Switch this year?
One thing we didn't get this year that we were promised was paid online, which I'm not complaining that I'm not paying for online. But we were supposed to get some sort of virtual console with that. There's still no virtual console. The only old games are ports of old Nintendo arcade games, which are nice, and Neo Geo games, which are also nice. But
I do like the fact that we're getting arcade stuff, because if they can do the arcade Donkey Kong, which, for those who don't know, the NES version of Donkey Kong is a notoriously bad port because it excises one of the 4 levels from the original game. And it also has a worse art style. Yeah,
they did what they could, but it's not the better version of it.
What's funny is, they could have done a much more arcade perfect NES port if that had come out like 6 years later, towards the end of the NES life cycle.
Yeah, you're right, they could have. I think what I like about the arcade stuff is that Nintendo has a ton of arcade games that are like uniquely arcade, and we never see again. Sky Skipper was an arcade game, and Sheriff as well, that they've never re-released ever.
I'm excited for Punch Out Arcade. I mean,
Punch Out Arcade is one. They released Versus Super Mario Brothers and Versus Mario Brothers. I'm excited for Versus Balloon Fight. That had like scrolling fight, arenas levels with vertical scrolling where you could fly up multiple stories and stuff. And I'm curious how they're gonna, because I haven't played any of the Versus games, but the big thing of that was that you had, you had 2 screens. Each person had their own screens, which kind of makes me feel like this would have been perfect for the Wii U.
So here's a question: do you think they're going to do third-party versus titles? Like versus Castlevania was a thing. It's a thing I remember playing. And I know Konami likes to shill out its ports as much as possible.
They might do. I'm trying to think, because there was tons of it. Versus games were just basically NES games.
Yeah,
made multiplayer, tweaked. Put on the thing. Yeah, versus Ice Climbers, versus Urban Champion, versus Wrecking Crew, versus Excite Bike is another big one that's like has a lot of features that were never seen in the regular Excite Bike. I think there's a lot of stuff they could do, and I'm hoping they announced versus Mario Brothers, they announced versus Ice Climbers, I think, and they announced versus Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, I know Konami had versus Top Gun, versus Gradius, versus Goonies, and versus Castlevania. I just that I remember. I don't know if other third parties had versus. Like, I always feel like Namco and Capcom had to have, right?
Versus Pac-Man has to be something, right?
Oh, hey, I found a list. Versus Battle City, versus Family Boxing, versus Kung Fu Heroes, versus... Wow, Namco has a bunch, but none of them are Pac-Man.
That's bizarre.
They have
Maybe they have their own.
They have versus Xevious is one of their games.
There's versus Dr. Mario from Nintendo, and versus Gumshoe.
Versus
That's
Tower of Babel.
Huh.
Yeah, we got again. We're getting off track again.
Sorry. I'm sorry, but I do have. I have to leave in 30 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
Let's keep going.
Let's then move on to the next topic that we were going to talk about, which was the Game Awards happened recently, and I had a list of the winners of it, and I thought this would be a good way to sort of segue into all the games that came out this year. And
Cuphead.
Yep, well, Cuphead won, what was it, Best Art Direction from the Game Awards, and Best Independent Game. And I haven't had the chance to sit down and play Cuphead yet.
Play Cuphead.
To be honest, it didn't really interest me, and I don't have an Xbox One. I think it's on Steam as well. I think that's how most people have probably played it.
That's how we reviewed it on our site. You should know this.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Cuphead is one of those ones that I think I would like to play just to see what, all the craze was about and look at the art style and stuff, because it looks very, very nice. But it's not been a game that's really pulled me in. and I've seen all the. A part of me feels like the hype is a little overblown, but then again, I haven't played it, so I can't really say that for definite.
One of my criticisms of the game is that there is no online multiplayer. Like, because if there was, I'd be like, dude, buy it now. We'll play through it because it's a lot of fun.
I kind of like the fact that it's local only, at least on consoles, just because it kind of goes along with that more like retro in-person aesthetic.
Do we know if is it like, did Microsoft pay to have it exclusive on Xbox One?
I assume as much.
I'm sure, yeah.
Like, is it like a timed exclusive, or is this?
They were pretty open. They're not bringing it to other consoles.
Oh, okay then. All right, that's what
I assume. Yeah, I assume Microsoft helped them because they had to like mortgage their homes to make it.
Yeah,
it is a lifetime exclusive, lifetime console exclusive.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But yeah, Cuphead.
So Cuphead will come to the Microsoft. I was gonna say Microsoft Smash Brothers game. So.
Oh yeah.
What were you gonna say, Wolfman?
Another Game Awards winner that is actually my third favorite game of the year after Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, Nier Automata.
Ah, yes, good. I want to talk about Nier.
I have not played Nier, so you guys can have fun with that.
I think it's like, so games are inherently like a super artificial medium, even more than other media, because you're always playing, like you're always going to be at a controller on a keyboard. And by extension, like, there's always going to be that kind of distance. And so I think a lot of the most interesting games are the ones that kind of lean into that.
Mm.
And one of the things I really like about Nier is that it uses meta, like, fiction and metatextual storytelling, not for humor, never for humor, but for actual, like, well-earned drama and well-earned, like, emotional storytelling.
Yeah, there are some really good parts of Nier that do stuff. I think the best example, the easiest example, that's also the most spoiler-free example, is the chip system, which to power up characters and get certain skills or increase strength, you can equip battle chips onto your characters. But stuff that's also included in these chips are like the HUD elements. Like, if you want to see your health bar, you can. If you don't want to see it, you can just remove the chip and it's just gone.
Yeah, and you got extra space.
Yeah, now you've got more space to do stuff. And it also includes an OS chip, which, if you remove, just ends the game. Because you can't do anything after that. And you get one of the game's many endings from it, which is quite amusing. But Nier was a fantastic game. I'd heard good things about it, and it was one of the games that I got last September to play through. And I've never played through any of the other Nier games, but I love Platinum Games, and they made this, so yeah. I thought I'd give it a go, and I did through all 5 endings of the game, the main ones anyway, and a bunch of stuff, and it was great. I enjoyed all the characters in it. I thought the story was really good. The music is amazing. Yeah,
there's one particular boss fight near the end of the game. I'm only going to say the name because that's not really a spoiler. Koshi and Roshi. That is one of the most like innovative, crazy, frenetic, wild things in a game this year.
I'm just trying to think which route is it in?
C.
So it is in Route C. Koshi and Roshi. Just trying to remember what it was. Because there's a lot of really good bosses, I feel like, in that game. A lot of
sorry. I'm trying to find a way to say it.
That's fine. Do you know which of the characters do you play as? Which number?
9S and A2.
Yeah, no, do they both fight them?
Yes. The gimmick is that you have 2 characters fighting.
Oh, I remember. Bosses. Oh, yeah, no, that's a really good boss. I love the way that boss is done. Yeah, I agree. That is a late game boss. But
well, yes, that is indeed.
I've never played a Nier game. I did play Drakengard. Drakengard.
This is the only Yoko Taro project I've played. Yeah. I loved it.
Well, from what I understand, this one's the most different. This was the most action-orientated, the least RPG, and I hear Drakengard and Nier actually aren't that great to play. They just have good stories. So, as far as I'm aware, Drakengard is purposely obtuse and annoying. So, just to make the player feel more uncomfortable while playing it.
It was like, it's been years, but I felt like it was not a good game. It's like you had a dragon and there were waves of enemies, like it was a Warriors game, and it was just...
Yeah. Well, that's apparently that's from what I'd read and heard from friends, that was meant to be done on purpose by him because it wasn't meant to be a pleasant game to experience.
I mean, hey, that's art, whatever you want somebody to experience, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of leads, I think, kind of nicely into another Game Award winner, What Remains of Edith Finch. I'm not sure if either of you played it.
No, walking sim games generally aren't my cup of tea. Not that I dislike them, but I've never really been motivated to play them other than the Stanley Parable because it's more of a comedy and I like comedies.
This is, it's fantastic. The main thing is that as you go through this story where you're kind of like exploring this kind of small house and it's filled with all these cool details, you go through the memories of people who've lived in the house, and each memory is kind of this small tragic story, but it also uses distinct gameplay. So one time you'll be controlling a kite, or one time you'll be controlling an animal and you'll be switching and you'll be doing certain things. I'm trying to keep this as obtuse as I can because it's a 3-hour game and I think it's good kind of going in without too much spoilers. And there are two really cool highlights. One is it's another sequence that is done up like a Tales from the Crypt comic.
Okay.
And the other is, and probably the most famous level in the game, is one where you're working at a fish cannery, and you are actually working at the cannery with the right stick and playing a separate video game that represents the main character's like internal fantasies with the left stick.
Yeah, I saw that on Mark Brown's video. It was one of his big highlights of the year as well, that minigame. Well, that thing, which, to be fair, looks very fun. I think it's very clever.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, another game this year. I'm just going to look at the Game of the Years and see if anyone's played them. Did anyone here play PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds?
No. I thought it looked fun. Then I tried to play it once and it was a buggy experience. And I said, you know what? I've got too many other games to play.
Fair.
That is
Wolfman?
my experience.
I'm not one for multiplayer shooters. I think it's a brilliant concept. Because it's essentially like the ultimate form of a competitive shooter, and I think the kind of fun like theme of that is that the ultimate form of a competitive shooter would be a horror game, where you're terrified of your opponents and they're terrified of you.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's isn't that what that like Friday the 13th game kind of was like?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Man, I've been meaning to play that one, but I never got around to that either.
No, I didn't. I keep
games.
forgetting it was a thing, but I remember seeing it, and I think Anvil really liked it.
I actually got quoted on the AV Club a few months ago for talking about the game, which is that I think really the ultimate point of brilliance in Friday the 13th, the game, is that Jason has to be controlled by a person.
Yeah.
Because Jason is a ridiculous caricature in those movies, and it just wouldn't come across if he was as mechanically perfect as a CPU.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good, clever way. It's like making a multiplayer version of Alien Isolation might be a good idea, but using the Friday the 13th IP.
You know what kind of upsets me about that, though, is that, well, it doesn't upset me, I'll say, but that whole asynchronous kind of gameplay goes back to the Wii U and stuff that they should have done for the Wii
U.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I always thought, you could have, like, split screen on the TV, and somebody could be doing something completely different on the tablet. You could have, I don't know.
That's what Nintendo did.
Yeah, Game and Wario did that.
Yeah, but not as much. Like, I always wanted... we'll get right back on topic, I promise. But I always wanted like a Dungeons and Dragons style game where like somebody was like the dungeon master and like laid everything out and could like had an entire map that they could control on the tablet. And then
so what you're basically saying is for new Super Mario Brothers style multiplayer on a Super Mario Maker level, someone is building while they're going through the level.
Yeah, why not?
That'd be quite funny.
Yeah, but I mean, more than that, you could have somebody like the reason I said Dungeons and Dragons is like a dungeon master is because you could place monsters and place scenarios. Like you would have an overhead view of like an area, and you could actually, with a stylus, place what you wanted to do and what people would encounter, and change it in real time while they're playing through on controllers, like on a split screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That just seemed like a no-brainer. Anyways, continue. Let's move on.
So, next game of the year is Persona 5. Did either of you play that?
Nope.
Too anime for me. There's some anime, but the Persona games like just cross that line where I'm like, personally, nothing wrong. You can like it. Just too much for me. And I'm playing Xenoblade.
My interest in JRPGs usually just is kind of like, it ends when it's out of Nintendo's wheelhouse.
Okay.
Like, I like Pokemon, I like Earthbound, I like The Thousand Year Door. That's it. But I actually am interested in playing Persona 5 because that is a whole field that is just completely unknown to me outside of Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I had that with Persona 4, and I had a great experience playing that game. I haven't had the chance to play Persona 5 yet because it, again, came out while I was in Japan. I didn't have a PS4 back then, but I know for a fact it's one of the games I'm getting for Christmas because I literally saw the person who bought it for me buying it for me during the Black Friday sales. So I know I'll be playing that shortly. That's kind of one of the reasons why I want to get Teslagrad, I want to get Yooka-Laylee, I want to get all of them done. Because Persona 5 is going to be a game, probably not as long as Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I know I'll probably spend that whole week between Christmas and when I have to go back to work playing Persona 5.
So what would you say is a good starting on point or jumping on point for people that have never played a Persona? I mean,
Persona 4. I mean, I don't have enough experience with Persona 5. I know it's been done really well, so maybe it is a very good one for people to get into. But Persona 4 is, I think, universally the one that most people know. Persona 3 is good, and it's a lot of fans' favourites, but I also think Persona 4 took what Persona 3 did and just improved on it in every way, in terms of gameplay and stuff like that. So Persona 4 feels like a much easier, less convoluted game to play than 3. And, and both of them are far easier to play than 2 and 1 are, which are old PS1 games.
Oh, sorry. Just as a side note, I think it's interesting that you mentioned Persona 5 doing really well for itself, because this is a year where we've gotten a Persona game, a Yoko Taro game, and a Monolith Soft art game, and these are all like very obtuse RPGs. Okay, not so much Nier, and they're all doing really well. Like, this is a year where JRPGs did really well, where 3D platformers did really well.
We have the Metroidvania genre has been doing pretty well. It had a new Metroid game. I mean, hey.
Yeah. That's a good way to segue into that, because I was going to bring up Metroid Samus Return won Best Handheld Game of the Year, which, to be honest, it wasn't much of a category, because they were all Nintendo games, except for Monster Hunter Stories. But, Metroid Samus Returns, Samus got that 2D game that everyone was craving for forever, especially since Federation Force came out last year.
Not even my favorite Metroidvania style game this year.
Well, no, it's not mine actually. SteamWorld Dig is mine.
SteamWorld Dig, dude. Hollow Knight is amazing.
Hollow
Knight is so good. And I actually like Blaster Master Zero, not as much as Samus Returns. But I have a ton of nostalgia for Blaster Master, so that's
that's the guy from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, right?
Blaster Master.
But yes, Samus is back, and they also announced Prime 4, but that's for next year. But or 2019. It's hopefully for next year, possibly not. But
hey man, here's something about 2017. Nintendo never delayed a game. Every game that we thought
true. They delayed their online services, but they didn't delay any of the games. Even Xenoblade, which no one expected to come out this year, came out this year.
I mean, to be fair, part of that was because they, I think, spent a lot of time beforehand getting them ready so that because I think they wanted to make very certain that they weren't going to ever delay one this year.
Yeah, well, I think that's like a thing they learned from the Wii U, because I think when they announced the Wii U, they announced a whole bunch of games to come for it, like Pikmin 3 and all that, and then pretty much every single one of them got delayed. Because the Wii U launched, and then Nintendo didn't release another game for it for 4 months, and then that game that they released was Game & Warrior. And then it was like another 2 months before anything else, and then it was like New Super Luigi U, which was just a basically glorified DLC for the first game.
I know some people will take, not offense, but they will not be happy with the statement in that I cannot wait for the 3DS to die. Because I hate when games come out and don't have Switch versions. Even something like Samus Returns, I'd rather have played that on my Switch.
A lot of people would have, but I think what people also have to remember is that Nintendo were very secrety with the Switch. And basically all the 3DS games that have come out this year, apart from Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, were all made by outside Nintendo companies. Like, not internally. Game Freak, HAL, Mercury Steam, Marvelous, and Good Feel, Grezzo. Like, none of these are internal Nintendo teams. Those teams that will, usually make the 2D Marios, the Zeldas, the Pikmins, the Star Fox, Mario Kart, F-Zero, and the original 2D Samuses have already moved on to Switch and have no games announced for 3DS and haven't had a game announced for 3DS in a while.
Right. Like, and a game even like Ever Oasis, I haven't looked at it. And it's because I don't feel like buying that many new 3DS games, to be honest with you.
I'm going to get it. I want to get Ever Oasis because I don't want it to go the same way Codename Steam did.
Yeah.
Future... The forgotten, the maligned article, Codename Steam.
And there are still quite a few good 3DS games. Hey Pikmin surprised me with how good it actually was, considering it's also Ars Rest and I hate them. And, well, hate's a strong word, but I did not like what they did with Yoshi. And, yeah, there are other games. Sushi Striker I'm interested in. I wasn't interested in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but I never really am with the second iteration games that they do. I
mean, 2017, let's be honest, was not a bad year for 3DS. Stuff like the Minecraft game came out this year, Mario Party came out.
3 Kirby games came out this year.
Yeah, sure. Let me think. Capcom Monster Hunters, right? The Monster Hunter, what's the one where it was like cartoony?
Oh, that's Stories. Monster Hunter Stories.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I was supposed to say there's one that was like
Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World also came out this year.
Yeah, what's funny is they ported all these games from the Wii U to the 3DS, and I'm like, nah, they're just gonna have to port them again to the
Switch. I don't know if they'll port Yoshi's Woolly World onto the Switch, although it's good on 3DS. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, that's a game that they should now port to the Switch instead of the 3DS. Yeah, Mario and Luigi as well, which is apparently really, really good.
It's not a bad year. It's just, but I feel like sales have probably been down too because people have moved on a lot to the Switch.
I would assume so, but I'd also assume a lot of people still are interested because even though it's going to die, there's still such a huge backlog of games. Like, I've got a friend, she got a 3DS, and like, there's a huge backlog of 3DS games, DS games that, like, that's exciting. That's like over 10 years of material.
Yeah, my friend just got a 3DS last October, and there's tons of stuff to play. I think what people have to remember is that the 3DS still has a massive install base, and it's silly for Nintendo and third parties to just cancel all their games for 3DS and bring them over to the Switch.
Personally, I want to play these games on the Switch.
Well, maybe they will get ported.
And I think from a development standpoint, things will be, when Nintendo stops making as much for the 3DS, which I think they have. I think they're less and less. Yeah. It'll be better because there'll be more and more for the Switch.
Oh, yeah. And I think all the people who've released games this year, so Grezzo released Ever Oasis, their next title is going to be on the Switch. Yeah. We already know Intelligent Systems' next Fire Emblem is on the Switch. Game Freak's next Pokemon is on the Switch. I'm sure Good Feel's next game is going to be on the Switch, and same for Alpha Dream. And like these are like the last. They've been making 3DS games. Now that the Switch is out, they've released the games they've made, and their next ones will be Switch.
Yeah. What's funny too,
the same for everyone.
When people talk about the Switch's future, and a lot of people are still like, I don't think it has a big long-term future because the graphic parity and other things are going to catch up to it and blah blah blah. I think what a lot of them think about is that when it reaches about $200 and can be marketed more as a handheld, I think you're going to see an explosion in sales again, especially if they come out with a form factor that's not necessarily a handheld only, because I mean that's kind of the point of the Switch. But when they have something that's better for handheld, better. More a mass market price and better battery life, I think you're going to start seeing it sell to people that want it as a handheld primarily.
I reckon they'll release a handheld free version of Switch. I mean, that's just to go off topic. I'm going to bring us back in a second, But I reckon they'll start selling the Switch without the dock as a cheaper alternative. And maybe one with where the Joy-Cons are slightly chunkier or whatever to appeal more to kids as an alternative to if you just want to play the games handheld. Because
Switch XL.
Yeah. Or a Switch, XL or a Switch Mini or whatever. But, sorry, go on and then I'm going to bring it back because we go off topic.
Because I think, honestly, the Switch's success is basically kind of that its success propels its success. Like, having Breath of the Wild come out on it really just pushed it so far, but it just keeps, like, every week it's some new eShop game that's at least somewhat interesting, if not, like, really exciting.
Dude, Golf Story is one of my top Switch games for the year. One of my top games for the year. Where'd that come from?
I need to play that one. I need to play that, and it's exclusive as well to Switch.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a few days ago, I heard that there's actually this breakdancing game called Floor Kids that's apparently really good.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because I remember when they revealed it during that Indie Direct they had back in September, and I had no idea what sort of game it was. I had no clue. But, they just released it recently, yeah. I think, for the Switch, if they can just keep up with the releases, and also releases that people want, I think that's a big issue with the Wii U, is that it had a lot of Mario. It didn't have any original Zelda game, if you ignore Hyrule Warriors, which even then got ported to 3DS, so it got a semi-sequel on 3DS.
No mainline Fire
No
Emblem.
mainline Fire Emblem game. No mainline Metroid game. They got Star Fox back, and it had Pikmin come back. Had no Animal Crossing, though, apart from the Amiibo Festival. And I think
isn't really count.
It was basically a lot of spin-offs, a lot of party games, very little in terms of...
They got all of their 2D games on there, but I think people kind of had their fill of those. I mean, they're still on the Wii, like...
Well, I think
Donkey Kong, Kirby, and Mario 2D games, we just played them.
And that's too bad, because Tropical Freeze is better than anything Rare's ever made.
That's another game I wouldn't mind being
Well, that's one I think will
over.
get ported to the Switch, because I think that's one of those games like Wonderful 101 that's really good and deserves a second chance.
Yes. The Wonderful 101, I really want to see that. And I think with Platinum, like, having such a good relationship with Nintendo, that's not an impossibility.
Well, with Bayonetta 1 and 2 now announced for the Switch for next year, and remember, Platinum were teasing that, but they also released an image of the characters from Wonderful 101 playing the game on the Nintendo Switch back in, like, August. That started up all of the... they're going to port it speculation that I'm sure if we don't get a port, we're getting a sequel for it for the Switch.
Yeah, the only games that I feel like will stay on Switch, on Wii U, is Nintendo Land and probably Star Fox, because I don't see how they can rework Star Fox.
I think Nintendo Land, Star Fox, 3D World, New Super Mario Bros. U. I think for those two latter games, I think it makes more sense for them to make a new one rather than port the old one.
But the same way you could get Galaxy on the Wii U. You might be able to get those games on the Switch eventually as, a remaster.
Yeah, Mario 3D World, I think, is good enough that it should have a Switch port.
I think the Wii U needs to have at least some games.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like unless Nintendo are missing a month that they need to fill with something, and I think that's what's important. Nintendo need to keep up the continuous releases that they've been doing this year. And if that means filling stuff for ports, that's fine. Like, we have, at the moment, all we know for next year is Kirby, Fire Emblem, and Yoshi, for sure.
Bayonetta.
From Nintendo... Oh, yeah, and I guess Nintendo are publishing... Well, we don't know if Bayonetta 3 is next year. We just know that 1 and 2 are. And the same for, like, Pokemon, they keep saying they want to get it out next year, but they're not promising anything. And Metroid Prime 4, they haven't promised anything, but people want it out next year.
That's Smash they haven't announced, but people are assuming.
Smash they haven't announced, but, like, if they could get a new Animal Crossing game out next year, if that rumored Pikmin 4 could come out next year, along with Kirby, Yoshi... thingy, if they could get Pokemon out next year, and if they could get some kind of Mario... They need some kind of party game. And I think maybe not Mario Party, but some sort of successor to Wii Party U for the Switch might work, because that's the one thing Switch is suffering from at the moment. Outside of Super Bomberman R, I can't really think of any games that might fall under the party category.
Puyo Tetris?
Well, Puyo Tetris, and I guess you got stuff like Jackbox.
The Jackbox games are great.
Yeah, they are great. But there's nothing Mario Party, Wii Party, Nintendo Land orientated. I think 1-2 Switch tried to be that and just failed miserably. Go on, Wolfman.
Just I was going to bring it around to some of the other games, major games this year.
Oh yeah, sure. I know you got to go soon. If you need to go, that's fine. Just here's your segment to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about before you need to leave.
No, I'm sorry, everyone.
It's okay. It's okay.
So Wolfenstein 2 was audacious and brilliant and exciting, and I actually just kind of got into the series this year, which, like, I was honestly astonished to find that Wolfenstein: The New Order was, in fact, actually this kind of brilliant and emotional and weirdly tragic game. What else? Came out Snake Pass was an absolutely brilliant sort of reimagining of how the 3D platformer worked in a year where 3D platformers got really huge. Resident Evil 7 was another one of those going back to the roots games. You guys can also kind of jump in, too.
I haven't played any of the games you've mentioned.
No,
so.
I want to play Resident Evil 7 and I want to play Wolfenstein. I might wait and get Wolfenstein on the Switch, and that will be my attempt at Bethesda on there, because obviously I already had Doom. I couldn't be bothered to buy it again. Resident Evil 7 I want to play. I got told I should wait till I get to play it in VR, but at this point I don't know when that will be, so I might just jump in whenever. Injustice 2 came out this year, as well as Marvel vs. Capcom
so
Infinite,
good.
and
Marvel
Tekken
vs.
7.
Capcom, not as much.
Tekken 7's amazing. I love Tekken 7 has got me back into Tekken.
Good.
I liked it. I wasn't a big fan of Mortal Kombat much. Injustice 2, maybe I'll play at some point, but I'm not anything massive on it.
I like the first Injustice, and I picked this one up for like $8, I think, on Black Friday, and that was a perfect price for it.
Oh, nice. That's a very good price for it, in fact.
Yeah, the NetherRealm games are always so much fun to play for story. Just playing through the story mode is fun. Like, honestly, like, it's not that the story is brilliant, it's fun, which it needs to be in a fighting game, you know?
Yeah. Wolfman, that was the game I was going to ask you. Did you get to play Hellblade?
I didn't. I want to.
Yeah, I felt like it's the sort of game that you would like. From everything I saw from it, because that's one I'm somewhat interested in. Everyone's obviously touting it as the indie game that's AAA levels. You know, that sort of the one that breaks down the perceived boundary of what counts as indie and what doesn't. And it's good, and it looks really good. It's I'm just trying to think what platforms it's on, actually, because I don't know.
It's on
it's PS4 exclusive.
Is it PS4 exclusive? Oh, okay.
And PC.
I was pretty sure it was on PC.
Yeah, it's just been kind of a really weird year. Like, even the stuff that, like, you'd think of, like, that just comes out of the woodwork. Like, oh, right, there was this game called Rime that's actually that's kind of nice and pretty. And then there's Golf Story, like you said. It honestly really did feel like every single week had something that was at least interesting to talk about, if not to always play. I liked Mario plus Rabbids a lot.
Yeah, that was a fun game. That was a game that I think's had a lot of focus this year because of how rumoured it was. And no one believing it, and then people finding it out slowly over before its reveal.
And, well, I also think it's there because, like, the thing with this year is that it was all... I think the biggest stuff of the year was based around a few things. Exploration, surprise, discovery, and also sincerity. Like, I think that so many of the biggest and best games of this year were games that had an actual coherent, interesting vision of what they wanted to be, of the themes and stories they wanted to present, and the ideas of gameplay. Like, Breath of the Wild could have been, like, a perfectly serviceable open-world game, but it's not a perfectly serviceable open-world game. It's a game where the actual boundaries are a lot more mutable than in pretty much any open-world game I've played.
Speaking of open-world games, it's funny, we've been talking for about an hour, and we have not mentioned Horizon Zero Dawn.
I was going to mention it before Wolfman said he had to run off quickly. Have you had the chance to play Horizon, Wolfman?
About 5 to 8 hours. I think it's okay. I'm gonna try to get back into it, but honestly, after
Zelda
Breath of the Wild,
it's what you want out of a game, because if you want something that's tighter, it's an open world game, but it's more restrictive and more narrative driven. If that's what you want, then that's fine. I know plenty of people, it's a beautiful game, that like it more than Zelda, but whenever I play that game, I'm like, why can't I get to here? I want to get to here.
You've stolen everything I was going to say. I played Horizon after playing Zelda.
Me too.
And I knew they came out at the same time and they were both open world experiences. But the whole time I even thought about doing a sort of video on it for Source Gaming, but then never found the time of comparing what Horizon did better than Zelda and what Zelda did better than Horizon. Because the one thing in both games is that Zelda doesn't have a story, Breath of the Wild, basically. It's pretty much non-existent.
Well, it doesn't have a plot. It does have a story. It's just that the story is you exploring this world and kind of going at it at your own pace. Right.
But unlike, compared to other Zeldas, which I know disappointed a lot of people because a lot of 3D Zeldas tend to have quite a good plot or a focus on plot at least. And Horizon, I think, had that good middle ground of letting you have this big open world game while still managing to maintain a cohesive and pretty decent story. And that's something that Zelda, I don't think, did. It just kind of sacrificed story. On the reverse of that, Horizon only lets you climb things that are marked in yellow. Zelda lets you climb anything you want. And that really annoyed me playing Horizon because I kept wanting to get to places and not being able to do it.
It gives you the Uncharted highlight, is what I like to call that.
Every time, like, you go through a valley or a crevasse in Zelda, and you're like, there's no invisible walls.
Yeah.
Like, that's incredible to me. It really is like, we have this idea and we're not going to retract it. We're not going to compromise it for a more strict story. We're just going to build the game to accommodate that. And that's what I mean by, like, sincerity. There was this, like, I want to tell a story. I want to design an idea, whether that's Golf Story or whether that's Mario plus Rabbids or whether that's Wolf 2. Like, all of these were games that really believed in themselves and they believed in their players. And I think thinking about that as kind of gets us to why some games weren't as good this year, like Yooka-Laylee. Yooka-Laylee was so, like, beholden to these older ideas, it wasn't willing to throw anything out, or maybe it wasn't able to because...
Okay, but what do you think?
Yeah, the Kickstarter.
What do you think of a game like Sonic Mania, which was very much about celebrating an old way of doing things?
It was, but it also fixes issues. Like, those old Sonic games do have issues. Sonic isn't as easy to control. They design levels in a way that basically forces you to memorize their layouts. I think Sonic Mania, from what I've seen, as I haven't played it yet, actually, like, has an eye toward level design that, as far as I can tell, actually really exceeds that of Sonic Team.
Yeah. No, I think Sonic Mania was a very good one. Wolfman, I know you got to go soon, but there are two things I want to make sure you get out there before you leave.
Sure.
What are your hopes or a prediction for 2018, and what would you give 2017 if you had to give it like a score out of 10? Like as a year for, or an A,
star.
A for gold star, 10 out of 10.
A grape scratch and sniff sticker because it did a great job. Okay, basically 2017 is the best year for video games we've had since 2007, and that was a year with BioShock, Mass Effect, Portal, Super Mario Galaxy, and dozens and dozens of excellent games.
Yeah, that's a hard year to beat.
Yeah. Truthfully, I don't know what the next, year is going to bring. I think it's going to be a lot of people kind of like recovering from all of these cool new ideas and trying to kind of explore them. So I think 2018 and especially 2019 is where we'll start to see like influences from Zelda on stuff.
You know what game I've heard? I played it actually briefly at E3, but besides that I never played it. But I hear is open in a way similar to Zelda, although it's much more of a narrative focused game, is Assassin's Creed Origins. Have either of you played that?
No, I haven't. I did think about getting it, and if it was going to come out to the Switch, I was considering buying it, but it's not one of my priorities. The way I've been dealing with third-party games is if it comes to the Switch, I'll give it a slightly higher priority than I would do otherwise, because the PS4 has many backlog of a game that I want to play. And, yeah.
I kind of fell off the series when Hurricane Sandy happened, and the only thing I had to play the week after my power got back was Assassin's Creed 3, which was an incredibly dispiriting experience.
That's where Assassin's Creed whatever the last one of 2 was, Revelations was the last one I properly played. I started 3 and then gave up very quickly. I couldn't get into it.
There's a term that video game writer Anna Anthropy uses called an orphaned verb. Basically, the idea that you're given a mechanic or an action that you learn, and then the game kind of just gives up on it.
Here's a bow and arrow. Learn it. Okay, that's it. That was fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that's insane to me. Like, and as far as I can tell, Origins does have some of that. It also cuts down on some of that, apparently, but to be honest, the most interesting thing about Origins to me is that there's a non-combat mode to teach you about Egyptian history.
I think that's really cool. That's a really nice feature.
I
think Assassin's Creed is a game series that really needs that because it's got a lot of historical references in it. What were you going to say?
In the series for a while, but this one, it's just I haven't cared so much that it makes it hard for me to care about this one. But I'm like, I'll buy it on sale one day, probably.
Yeah, no, if there was any Assassin's Creed game that was going to make me go back into the series, I think it's this one, because it's the only one that's had me slightly interested since I fell off of it. And so we'll just have to see, but not until I've done all these other great games that I need to get around to playing. So, right, I'll let you go, Wolfman.
Yeah, I'm very sorry.
That's okay. I know we kind of pulled you into this because you're available, and then I kind of delayed everything. That's all behind-the-scenes stuff you guys listening don't need to worry about.
But now you all get to hear how the sausage gets made.
But thank you for joining us, Wolfman.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here. It's been a while, and I'm looking forward to showing up on some more Sourcecasts.
Yeah, Sourcecasts. We hope to have you on for them.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. See ya.
All right. Bye-bye. So, Spazzy, it's just me and you now.
All right. Let's do this.
Let's get the real party started now.
Now we'll go real deep into Sonic Mania or something.
Well, so we had Sonic Mania, we had Sonic Forces as well, which I haven't had a chance to play yet.
Oh, no, there was only one Sonic game that came out this year. It was a throwback game. It's weird that there was no 3D Sonic that came out this year.
Sonic Forces. I haven't played it yet. I have a feeling I'll enjoy it for what it is because I've always kind of been a fan of the 3D Sonic games. I just don't have any major expectations from it other than a really cheesy storyline.
Yeah, that's a budget title, man. If there ever was a game that I'll see like in a clearance rack one day or on a Steam sale or something, be like, yeah, I'll buy that for $10.
The Switch version already went down to £20. Like,
wow!
in here in the UK, it was I think Asda. It was like Asda or Argos. It dropped to 20. I considered picking it up then, but I was like, nah. I don't know what I want to get it for because I was originally gonna grab it for PS4. At least that's what I was going to review it for if we got the review copy. And I don't know. Because I hear the PS4 version's the better version because it deals with all the frame rates issues and stuff like that. But
I mean, I like that the game lets you like play as your own OC, Sonic character.
Yeah, I think that's something that the series needed for a while. My only concern is I've seen footage and stuff of it, and it's like they have a bunch of NPC characters which are nice, but they all use the same creator character, and none of them look varied at all. They all look like the same copy paste model over and over and over and over again. And I think this is obviously because they clearly didn't spend enough time making this game. But
yeah, like I don't know. I haven't been a huge fan of 3D Sonics. I like them well enough. They're fun diversions, but they're definitely not games that I like look forward to. And they haven't been for a long time. What was the one for the Wii U? Sonic
Lost World. That was a meh game. It was like I don't know. It tried to be Mario Galaxy-ish, but I didn't like what they'd done with the controls.
I felt like
I don't understand because Sonic Colors was actually really good, and Sonic Generations was really good, and I appreciate them for trying something different with Lost World, but it just didn't work. It was just bad.
I have no idea why they felt like they had to shoehorn classic Sonic into Federations. Forces, sorry. Federation Force.
Federation Forces.
Oh man, that would have been the best
Sonic
game.
Federation
Forces. That would have
basically. I don't mind classic Sonic being in it. I think I think the 3D Sonics have lost their way almost, because I feel like what a lot of people really liked about the old ones was that you got to play as loads of Sonic's friends, and then they were... I think Sonic Team were fooled by a loud minority, into thinking that they just needed to have Sonic.
I mean, what I like about Lost World is that they tried to take it back to the drawing board. It's just that, like, it wasn't done well.
Yeah, no, it wasn't done well. And I think Sonic Boom could have been good if Sega weren't complete stupid heads about how they went about developing that game. Like, you know, at least tell Red Button what system it's for so that they can use the correct engine to make the game with. Because that's the main reason why Sonic Boom is absolute trash, because the engine they made it on wasn't compatible with the Wii U.
Well, also, Sonic Boom didn't have... and I haven't played it, but I've seen some Let's Plays of it just out of curiosity. And it feels like there was no focus on what the game wanted to be. It seems like it changes genres and characters and everything like so often. And it has other issues. But I feel like I don't feel like it's the fault of bad developers. I think it's the fault of Sega being too wishy-washy and iffy, which we were hoping they would change with Forces and clearly did not. Have you ever played any of the Yakuza games?
I have not, actually, but one of them came out this year, didn't they? Yakuza 0.
Yakuza 0, yeah, and that's another game that I played at E3, and it was the first time I played a Yakuza, and I'm like, this is so much fun. And then I never bought it.
It was going to be one of the ones, it was between Yakuza and Nier, and I'd heard better things about Nier, which is why I went for that one.
But I hear Yakuza's pretty good, and that's something that I wouldn't mind checking out.
Yeah, no, I'd like to have a look at Yakuza at some point once the backlog's cleared. Speaking of games we haven't spoken about yet, Crash Bandicoot came back.
It did.
Yeah, and the Insane Trilogy, which is one that I think I'll probably be getting for Christmas as well.
I almost bought that at some point, but I did not, so I can't tell you much except for, the original games were good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like the original. I think this is a good opportunity for me to try and play Crash again, because it's been a long time. And I feel like it's one of those games, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie, where I would have every so often gone back to play it to see what it was like, and I think this is a good excuse than any to go back and try. Maybe I won't try all three at once. It depends how fatigued I feel after the first one. Because that's what collection games tend to do. I tend to split them up into multiple playthroughs.
I would like to see more remakes of games from that era, of 3D games from that era.
Well, Sony seemed to be on it because they announced Medieval,
right?
remake.
Which I'm kind of excited about. I brought it up, I think, on the last Source-cast. It was a good series. Nintendo seems kind of averse to that, although not on 3DS, because we had Star Fox, the Star Fox 64 and the two 64 Zeldas remade. Yeah.
Well, I think Nintendo's always kind of, because the DS had Super Mario 64 remade.
Right, but I would love to see Mario 64. Just like, how difficult would it be to do a remaster using the Odyssey engine?
Well, I think as well, remember, because Wii U had Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, and while Twilight Princess HD is more of a slightly prettier,
it's a remaster. Let's call it what it is. That's an HD remaster, yeah.
But Wind Waker is kind of a weird middle ground of being a remake and a remaster, because I think they added enough new stuff into Wind Waker where it's not just a straight up HD version. Because I mean, they completely changed the way that the models were and the textures and stuff like that, made it slightly less cell shaded than the original game.
Right, and they changed some actual things in the. Well, they did that in Twilight Princess as well, but not to the same degree.
Not to the same extent, yeah. Which is so. I don't think Nintendo are adverse to porting, and I'm 100% guarantee that Skyward Sword HD will be coming out to the Switch at some point.
I would 100%, even though I own the games on GameCube / Wii and then on Wii U. If they did a 2-pack for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD for, let's say, $45, I'd buy it.
No, I think that's something they should do, but because it's Nintendo, I don't think they'll do it.
Right, that's a very Sony move, like they did for the God of War trilogy on PS3.
Yeah, I think Sony understand that better, whereas I think Nintendo are like, well, this game was worth it when it came out now, so why is it not worth it when it comes out this time? I think the way Nintendo would look at it is say they remade Mario Galaxy. I don't think that. Well, actually, no. Galaxy, they might do a Galaxy 1 and 2 pack because those games are so similar and run basically on the same engine that it makes a bit more sense for that game to be like that. But with Wind Waker and stuff, I could see them just being like, well, the quality of Wind Waker hasn't gone down in however many years. It's still a fantastic game, so why should the price go down? Sort of thing.
Right, I agree with you on that, 100%.
Yeah, like that is like 100% Nintendo's view on things, and so that's why I don't think. Although it would be a smarter move on my part if you want to get people who've already bought Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD to get these games to release them together. I mean, that's what they're doing with Bayonetta 1 and 2, which I guess was done like that in America on the Wii U, but it wasn't in Europe. In Europe, they were separate games.
Yeah, so, I think that's a smart move as well.
Yeah, but that's something I would like to see more from the Nintendo 64 GameCube era, I think. I mean, a lot of people wanted Mario Sunshine HD, and I think with the lack of GameCube Virtual Console, a lot of people want to see stuff like Star Fox Assault and Kirby Air Ride, and I'd like to see Geist, personally, Geist and Eternal Darkness.
And Melee.
It's not happening.
You don't think they'll do like not a. I feel like with Melee and with Brawl, the way to do it is not like a straight Virtual Console release, because you still want netcodes for people to play it. Like how when Capcom re-release some of their old fighting games, you just kind of redo the netcode and the interface a little bit, but it's still the same gameplay wise. Like nothing's really added.
See, I don't know. I don't think they would. I don't think they would re-release them. I think we will see Melee on Virtual Console if they do GameCube Virtual Console, because they don't need to organize any rights like they'd have to with Brawl to get Snake, because they'd have to have Snake in it and stuff.
I don't know. I don't know if there's some sort of clause in perpetuity or how. Like, I don't know. I don't think it'd be difficult for them to re-release with Snake. I don't know, but I doubt it.
It depends. But with Melee, they don't have to worry about that, and I think they know it. And I think they would add online onto it, as they've already talked about adding online onto past games with Virtual Console. So I think that's something they could do, but I don't see them re-releasing it and marketing it as a full game, especially if they do have another Smash game coming out, because I think Smash is one of those games kind of like Mario Kart, where they just constantly update it and release new ones and would rather you buy the latest one. And each kind of game feels like, apart from the content that's there, each game feels more like an improvement over the last, rather than
I mean, the mechanics are so different, so people do have their favorites out of Mario Karts and out of Smash.
Yeah, no, it's true, but I think the way it's viewed internally and the way I think it's generally designed is about adding rather than completely changing up the formula. Which is why I don't think they would bother ever remaking. The only Mario Kart I could see them remaking would be Double Dash, and that's because that one's so fundamentally different with how its karts work.
Even released as like ports, like you get Mario Kart 64 all the time and Smash 64. So what's that different for releasing Brawl?
Well, those are Virtual Console games, and I think on Virtual Console, sure. But I don't think we'd get a sort of Wind Waker HD style remake.
No, I mean, I don't think you'd get that, but I mean, I think maybe it would be a little bit different, because even with the games that they're going to be supposedly coming out for their online service, they're going to rework like Nintendo and Super Nintendo games with online and things. So I could see them doing that. I don't think it'd be
no. But again, this is still Virtual Console, and I think Virtual Console, they don't care because it's all about them people playing the older ones. But whereas Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are like unique experiences.
Melee being able to be played without any frame rate issues on an HD console, with an HD output, I'll say, and with online, I think is enough for most people.
Oh, no, I agree, but I don't know if Nintendo agrees.
But I'm saying that could basically be a Virtual Console release if all they would have to do is add online and make sure it runs properly.
No, I think it will. I think GameCube games will eventually see Virtual Console releases, especially, I know it's the sign of them coming to NVIDIA Shield in China is not an implication that they're going to be coming to the Switch.
But it's not an implication.
It's not, yeah. Like, the fact is they are bringing GameCube games to the thing. The only issue GameCube games have on the Switch is the lack of analog sticks. But they could always re-release Joy-Cons with analog sticks, and Nintendo have done stuff like this in the past. Remember, Nintendo 64 games on the Wii you needed a Pro Controller to play. You had to buy an additional thing just to play them, and I could see them being like, yeah, we're releasing GameCube controllers, but you either need a third-party or GameCube controller adapter to play them, or you need to buy these Joy-Cons with analog controls.
I hope 2018 brings new types of Joy-Cons, especially one with a D-pad. I mean, I
think that's a thing that will definitely happen.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I do enjoy having two controllers to play with other people, but I mean, sometimes I know it's just going to be me on a plane flight or something, and I want a D-pad.
Right. So, are there any other games that came out this year, or anything in particular that you want to talk about from 2017? Otherwise, I might start wrapping this up because it's gone on a bit longer than I was expecting it to.
Nothing in particular. Like I said, there's a ton of great indie games. We touched upon that right now a little bit earlier. It was just a great year for gaming. VR. They try to shove VR into everything, and it still doesn't quite work. I think that's maybe the only other thing to talk about.
And loot boxes are being thrown into everything, and it's become a massive stinker.
Although I'm gonna say, like, I don't mind loot boxes that you can earn in, like, just personally. I don't mind games that give you ways to earn loot boxes every day or every week or whatever, because I've never been somebody that's like, I need this edge. I mean, I guess especially in a game like Overwatch where it's just all cosmetic stuff anyways.
See, I'm not a big fan of loot boxes in paid games. In free games, sure, whatever. But I for like 60 quid games, it does depend on how they're implemented. This is very case by case. But on a fundamental level, I feel like stuff like, if it's content that I feel like would have been in the main game regardless, and then they've just been cut out to be put into loot boxes, it bothers me.
Well,
and you do get this with some games. I mean, even Nintendo games are with Amiibo. What they did with the Samus amiibo really bother me this year.
Well, but think about something like with Overwatch, right? I brought that up. Sure, that's a full-price retail game, and yeah, there's loot boxes in it for cosmetic stuff. But also, when did that game come out? And they're still regularly coming out with new stages and new modes and new holiday events and new characters.
I think stuff that's like more DLC post-game focused, I don't mind so much. And if Overwatch launched and then the loot boxes came half a year later or whatever, I mean, I would struggle to make the argument that they'd cut stuff out of that. But then you have situations, obviously, like Shadow of War.
Right.
And Star Wars Battlefront 2, which obviously took it to the absolute extreme. And a bunch of 2K's games like WWE and NBA that completely just went balls to the wall with it and ruined everything.
Yeah, it's definitely a slippery slope thing. I don't think they're the devil like some people think, but I think they're bad. a lot of their implementation in a lot of games, it's just bad business practice.
Yeah,
it's very
EA hasn't had a particularly good year this year. I think Mass Effect Andromeda released and was shat all over.
I forgot that existed.
They showed up at Nintendo's thing to announce support with FIFA, and then tons of questionable stuff about it, and then it launched really badly. And NBA as well. Is NBA EA Sports or 2K?
2K. Oh, they have NBA Live, but that's not the one that came out on Switch.
Yeah, okay, all right, then not the NBA stuff then.
I mean, they closed
down. EA closed down Visceral Games this year, which obviously upset a lot of people. Made the silly statement that people don't like playing single player games, even though like every single game that won this year an award, except for Injustice 2, I guess, and Overwatch.
This was a great year for single player games, actually.
Yeah. So this was fantastic. This was the worst time to make that claim.
Yeah, because all they came out with was Battlefront Andromeda and a bunch of sports games, right? That was it.
Yeah,
and
Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars, Andromeda, and a bunch of sports games. And maybe one of those, because occasionally they release a really random, smaller title.
The Sims 4, Cats and Dogs came out.
Oh yeah, that came out. Yeah, I know that. I know that came out this year.
and Battlefield Revolution. So
okay, yeah,
but not much.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't think it's been a good year for them. It's been a good year. Maybe that's a sign when EA has a bad year, gaming has a good year.
All right, I think on that note, I think it's a good...
Yes, this is a good wrapping up point. So, I asked Wolfman this, what score would he give for this year as a whole, and what do you anticipate to see next year?
I don't know, what sticker would I give it? Maybe,
what
maybe
score? It could be
sun.
anything.
I'm gonna give it a B+ out of 100. So
Okay, all right, good. That's good.
I think it's some genre defining games this year. You know what? The only reason it doesn't get an A is because there's no Smash Brothers, and I can't give any year that doesn't have Smash Brothers.
Well, I'm gonna not be that petty, and I'm gonna go with an A out of 5 fish heads. It's
perfect. Good score.
I think it's been a very good year, especially compared to the last year, where 2016 was a nightmare of a year for games. I think the Switch's launch has gone incredibly well. I think other companies, Sony in particular, have done pretty well. Microsoft I'm more iffy about. Their E3 was actually not too bad.
The Xbox One X is doing okay.
Xbox One X is doing okay, but I consistently think every time they announce something that they're just drowning the Xbox brand by making everything be on PC. Like I bought a PS4 this year, not only just because it was on sale, but I always planned on getting one eventually because there are games on it that I feel like I want to play. But Microsoft has spent this year dissuading me from buying an Xbox by releasing everything on PC.
I loved Sea of Thieves when I played it at E3, but I can get that on PC. I mean, I have an Xbox One anyways, but
they made a statement saying that they weren't, against releasing their original IPs on competing platforms.
Yeah, they're
which
trying
seems
to make
silly.
Xbox a platform and not like a console environment.
So.
Yeah,
like you still need, like, if you want to play Minecraft, cross-play with Xbox, which is something that both Microsoft and Nintendo, and this is where Sony has been dropping the ball, cross-play on Minecraft, cross-play on Rocket League, and potentially cross-play in future games, where Sony has just been not letting anyone do it, whereas Microsoft has been very open and probably, in the case of Minecraft, even helping to set up the crossplay. I mean, if you want to do crossplay, you have to have an Xbox Live account, but that also means you're guaranteed the connection to be good, because Xbox Live is actually genuinely good. But, okay, alright. Well, thank you for joining me, Spazzy, and thank you for everyone out there who has been listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, or listening to this on YouTube, I should say, let us know in the comments below what your highlights of this year have been and what you're looking forward to, and a score if you want. Give us a score out of whatever it is, whatever score system you want.
Give us a something out of something.
Yes. And if you're not listening to the YouTube, then you should go let us know on Twitter. Twitter's probably the best place to get a hold of us, at All Source Gaming. Facebook, we also have Source Gaming Facebook, and we have a Discord server, which you can come and hang out in. There should be invites about, or just ask one of us at Mr. Nintendo on Twitter, or at SpazzyD.
Yeah, well, it's at 8bit_Spazzy.
Oh, yeah, 8bit_Spazzy. Oh, yeah. My bad. But, yeah, alright. 2017, good year. Hopefully 2018 doesn't fall down the drain straight away.
Yep, talk to you guys next year.
And remember to always return to the source.
Bye.